Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Joy of the Rediscovered album. Lots to talk about in this episode, as is always the case, I suppose. But really interesting period in my life. I would say this is a pivot period, personally. And I'll explain why in a moment. Some things I'll explain as I go along. Some things I'll stop and have to explain because they don't always tie in with what's necessarily on the screen. So today's album, as you can see, or this episode's album, is Ray of Light by Madonna. I would say this is my favourite Madonna album. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that would compete for that. Possibly Like a Virgin. So I would probably say that, looking at Madonna albums, Ray of Light is my favourite. I really like Confessions on a Dance Floor. So probably these three duke it out. But once that's done, this I would say is top of the pile. And then maybe, these, then this, then this. And there's other ones that I really enjoy, like a Prayer, the first album. And, I've listened to all of these. I do, over the years I have listened to a lot of Madonna. Probably started listening to her, when stuff started first being released on singles in the UK. And it's really funny. It's the sort of artist I've followed in parallel with all my explorations into extreme music. So anyway, just back to this time. So interesting time in my life, February 1998. So just as I was about to record this episode, I was just trying to get my thoughts together, because I do try and do these episodes as off the cuff as I can, because I like the challenge of trying to remember stuff. It's good for you, basically. That's the way I think of it. It was good for me to try and do that, to challenge one's memory, and then use this as a sort of reminder to say, oh yeah, that album came out. I can remember this was happening. So February 98 it came out. At the point it came out, I pretty much bought it on it came out, partially because of the producer, which was William Orbit, or one of the producers. And I had been aware of William Orbit prior to this, but I started probably to listen to him. I was aware of Strange Cargo, this stuff on the IRS label, but Pieces in a Modern Style, so 99. And so I was pretty excited when I found out he was going to be producing the next Madonna album. So I bought it when this came out, wasn't disappointed, certainly not disappointed re-listening to this. Also was really interesting when we come to it and looking through what else came out in 98, listening to that. So bought it when it came out. At this point in my life, I was working for a value-added reseller in Eastbourne. Eastbourne's on the south coast of England. It's famous, I think, at that point, probably still is, for a place where a lot of retirees went. Basically, nice seaside town. And the office, the place where I worked out, was about, I would say, a couple of miles just outside of just away from the actual seafront. But where we were was in the old part of Eastbourne, where Eastbourne Town Centre used to be. There wasn't really much there still. I mean, there was a supermarket and a couple of interesting shops, actually. There was a really cool model shop with Scalextric and model railways and FX kits, which was literally 2 minutes walk away from where I worked. But the nearest record store, and the reason why geography is important here, is it was about, I think, something like a 20-minute to nearly half an hour walk each ways. So in a lunch break, I could sort of get there. So I'd often walk down to Eastbourne Town Centre, and there was a really cool record shop there, and I'd buy a load of stuff. At that point, I do remember I was infilling a lot of the Peaceville 3, as I referred to, so Anathema, Paradise Lost, My Dying Bride. Yeah, My Dying Bride at that point. And so I suspect I probably bought this album one of those trips down to the town centre. Bought it on CD. At that point I did have a car with a CD player in it, which was quite handy. So I was definitely had well gone down the CD rabbit hole. So 98, so I started work at this value-added resellers in Eastbourne at the previous year in July of 97, because I remember it being summer, because I had to go away to be trained in the software. The software I was using was something called Concord XAL, and it was a 4GL language, so it was basically an accounting system which had a back-end database and had a programming language to go with that, all shrink-wrapped into the product. There was a native database. There was also a version where you could lock it onto MS SQL, and the language looked very much like Visual Basic, actually, to be honest with you, very much like it, which is fortunate for me. This comes at a time in my life when I was also doing my postgrad. I was about halfway through my computing and manufacturing postgrad, which I'd started at my previous firm, but it was all self-funded. I paid for it myself. I had to do it alongside my studies. I was as Open University, as I've mentioned in the past, was the institution that I was using to study with. Amazing institution. At this point, I was probably up to learning about what would be. I'm trying to remember me doing my homework in my lunch break, and while I was driving around, because at that point I had to buy a laptop as well, because I was also on the road quite a bit, visiting clients around the southeast and middle England, and the courses were run up in Coventry as well. So yeah, I'm driving around a lot. I'm trying to do a postgrad, and I was doing something on intelligent systems, analysis and design of that, and also what was I doing programming wise? Oh, object-oriented programming, I think. Or maybe I just started it. So previous to joining this, it was a startup. Originally there were just two of us working out of this office in Eastbourne. And previous to that, in 97, July of 97, I'd been working at Radio Rentals on an accounts line, doing till support, but also a bit of programming. I'd programmed before this. I'd worked in microbiology before that and done a lot of programming of document creation systems and quality control and bacterial identification. But what was interesting about doing the value-added reselling job, it was the first time where I actually had programmer in my job title. It was programmer analyst. Prior to that, when I was doing programming, I was never employed fundamentally as a programmer. I was leveraged what I used to call back in the day as grey resourcing, where, you know, that thing you find yourself where you're actually officially doing one job, but you're unofficially doing something else. And I was doing a massive amount of programming prior to being involved in value-added reselling, and also doing quite a bit of programming when I was working on Radio Rentals on the accounts line, doing electronic point of sale. I'd write these little systems programs and stuff like that. Was doing quite a bit. Had, prior to the value-added reselling job, was also doing VBA in Access, and I don't know if there's a corresponding language in DBase or not, I can't remember, but a bit of DBase stuff, and actually whatever version of Visual Basic as well, was dabbling in that. So I had, was working quite a few different languages, a bit of C. I used some C, I think, once I worked for the value-added reseller to write a little DLL, because the programming language could interact with DLLs as well. So it was a pretty interesting time. I only stayed there for 18 months actually, and then I worked for myself, and there I just did lots of different things. So for me it was a real turning point, that doing full-time programming, where I probably learnt 5 years worth of stuff in 18 months, was a real turning point for me. And all the time while I'm driving round, I'm listening to this album alongside some other stuff as well. I think the other album I listened to a lot at this period, it probably came out either just before or around this time, was 1 Second by Paradise Lost. I think that's the name of the album. We'll probably find it. So yeah, definitely memories of doing a lot of programming. Value-added reseller, if you're not aware of the term, what happens there generally, and this is very stereotypical description, but for me at the time when I was explained, that's what I thought a value-added reseller was the idea, and the way we explained the term was, we sold the base system at cost, and then we added value by modifying it to how the client wanted it, and in modifying it, that's how we got our money. We charged an hourly rate and a certain fee for the any other work that was involved, because there was a degree of systems analyst and specification, those sort of things also. Although after I've been working there for a while, someone else took the specification side of things over. We didn't really do that anymore, which was nice to be able to just concentrate on more the programming aspect of things. But indirectly got involved in things like server setups. Again, I ended up talking the firm out of doing that because it was sort of distracting us from day-to-day programming, so we could just concentrate on that. Yeah, cool album. Universal critical acclaim. So I left the firm in November of '98, and then moved on to work for myself for 11 years, and that I sort of carried on. I marketed myself as a information systems specialist, and I was mainly doing troubleshooting and training. But as part of troubleshooting and as part of training, I did end up doing more programming. In fact, I did quite a lot of training in Office, and as a result, on several occasions, I had to train people how to do VBA in Access, amongst other things. And also in that sort of post, working for the value-added reseller from November 1998 to November of 2009, which is when I moved to Canada. So that period when I was working for myself. Also in parallel was lecturing at East Surrey College. So yeah, that, I must admit, although I basically left value-added reselling because I didn't really enjoy it, I can't deny that those 18 months I spent basically set me up. In parallel, obviously, we're doing the postgrad. That really did turn everything around. So yeah, it's time well spent, even though probably one of the most stressful periods in my life. Obviously, decided doing a postgrad whilst working a new job at a startup, doing scary accounts modifications, occasionally on live systems, which isn't the desired thing, but sometimes those things happen when stuff is broken. So back to the actual album in question. As I've said, discography wise, I mean, let me just think about the albums I've owned here. So yeah, that one, Like a Prayer, Ray of Light, Confessions on, A Dance Floor. Yeah, everything else I've subsequently listened to on Spotify. I also have a few compilation albums. I think there was one. Was it called You Can Dance, which has all the 12-inch remixes on it. It's a pretty early compilation album. Came out around this period. And also there's a really good greatest hits album from, I think, around the time of Here. And then there's that other one, which is it called Something to Remember Me By, which has slightly more obscure tracks on it. So yeah, I have that. Oh, and there we go. First 3 compilation albums. I really enjoy this album, actually. This is really cool. It came out in 95, but the hit... yeah, I remember that I've got, and I think I've said this in previous episodes, any time from really around 93, 94 through to July of 97, because I was working at Radio Rentals then, and when I worked on the helpline, they had the radio on all day. So I have real vivid memories of singles from that period. After that, I was listening to the radio more while I was driving around, as a working in value-added resale and then working for myself. So I didn't necessarily listen to as much radio as then when it was in the office. But I just remember them playing stuff of Something to Remember, You'll See, in particular. And then obviously a lot of... Madonna, not surprisingly, was very popular on UK radio. So British music around that time. Girl groups, boy bands, really big thing. There was that cover of, Under the Bridge? And Lady Marmalade as well. All Saints, yeah. Yeah, they were massive at that time. Now, the other one that I remember around that period, it may have been a little bit later, is Drugs Don't Work by, was it The Verve? Yeah. Oh, of course, yeah. Spice Girls had a declining career. Yeah. Oh, yeah. 1990s was full of boy bands. 1988 was not the strongest year. Oh, do you remember Aerosmith with I Don't Want to Miss a Thing? It mentions Ray of Light here. That's it, urban hymns. Drugs Don't Work, Bittersweet Symphony, Manic Street Preachers, If You Tolerate This, Your Children Will Be Next. Robbie Williams, of course, Life Through a Lens, that was 97, so the previous year. But of course, into 98, a lot of the singles were getting played, and it got Talk on Corners as well. Again, 97, so yeah, Overspill into 98. Have I got the year? Yeah, just make sure I got the year right there. And Natio and Bruno, yeah, Torn. Again, more, 97 releases that were then spilling over into 98, or follow-on releases. Oasis, Garbage, Catatonia, Space, Embrace, Pulp, Massive Attack. Oh, Billy, was that Billy Piper? Yeah, went on to be in Doctor Who. Now, Believe, what was that? 98 that was. Oh, I was hoping that would come up. So, Brian Higgins. Factoid. He was actually working. I knew him for a very brief period of time. When he was an up and coming writer music writer, and he worked for a small period of time in, I don't know if he was working in the lab where I work. He didn't even work in the lab with me, but I was working in one of the other labs or down in the production area. So this was prior to me working at Radio Rentals. I worked at a pharmaceutical place for about 12 years, and during that period he was working there. And well, yeah, East Grinstead, that's where the firm was. Wow. Because I just, the reason why I'd remember is that I'd actually left the firm by that there, left the lab by that time when he got famous for his. But while I was there, someone said, "Oh yeah, he's a songwriter." And then while I was there, I must have bumped into somebody who was either who had worked at the firm or still knew him or something. And they said, "Oh yeah, he's written this song for Cher." Maybe it was actually probably one of the other musicians, because there was a couple of musicians I worked with when I worked at Radio Rentals. And all the time I was working at the value-added reseller in this period, I was still in contact and popping into my old workplace because I enjoyed working there so much. Yeah, it was rather sad. The only reason I'd left the job at Radio Rentals was actually just because the pay wasn't very good, but I really loved working there. So yeah. Oh God, this does bring back memories. Okay, let's have a quick look at the #1 singles in the UK. So there's Frozen. So this is 98. Yeah, I do apologise. My mind is jumping all over the place, all around the world. Oh, It's Like That by Run DMC. Yeah. So that must have come out in 98. Yeah, this is, I must remember, this is 98, so I was working through there. And then, but the time the Believe track came out. Yeah, now it's all coming back to me, yeah. So in November, yes. So November of that year, I left to go and work for myself. And then what happened was I went into my previous firm, Radio Rentals, who I was still on really good terms with, because they'd always said, "Oh, if you don't want to get fed up with working for the value-added reseller, you can always come back." So I went in there and said to them, "Well, I haven't quite come back, but I'm working for myself now, and if you ever want a trainer or someone to do troubleshooting or a bit of coding for you." Now, they had IBM, actually was their main firm they went to, but I went in on really good timing, and they were just thinking about upgrading their computers. So the office managers had reached out to them. It was really nice of her, and she said, "Look, we don't need training from you. We've got this person who we know, who knows everybody at the firm. He's going to come in for 2 weeks and train us all in using the PCs." And the deal was originally anyway with them, they decided to go down this route of learning where they were just going to put the PCs in, see how people got on, and then do some follow-up training. So that's what I did. I did follow-up training over 2 weeks, just went into Radio Rentals, the office there, and went round and basically answered everybody's questions about using, what would it be, Windows 90. I can't remember if they went to 97 or they actually just went to 95. I imagine they went to 97 actually. So yeah, which I think I might have already been using. I'm trying to remember if they were doing that thing of some firms will wait a year before they start using the latest operating system. So it may well have been 95. Yeah. Oh, there's the albums. Our Urban Hymns of Verve. Yeah, I remember this being on the radio all the time, and I used to have to drive up to Coventry in '98 to attend these computer courses, just to learn more about the Concorde XL, which was the counting system we used with the 4GL bolted to it. And yeah, I remember driving up, sometimes listening to music, obviously listening to Madonna, although that was a little bit later on, but earlier on in the year. Yeah, because I remember going up around Christmas time, I think I can't remember if that's when I had to sit an exam, and also having to do MSSQL at the time as well. We were doing these little, because the original courses we went on were like a week long, so I'd stay in Coventry for a week at this hotel. But some of the other stuff was like 1 day courses. So, either on a couple of occasions when they were 1 day, I'd actually just drive up really early in the morning and then drive back. But again, if it was like more than that, then I'd stay in a hotel. It turned out actually what I learned through this is I'm not really a road dog. Yeah. Not a road dog. Some people love the sort of life on the road as a programmer, but not for me. Oh, Pulp, what was that? That was a 6th album by then. And I remember this, International Velvet by Catatonia. Yeah, at that time I liked the other Catatonia I actually liked both albums, which I got into very confusing conversations with people. Talk on Corners. I think I had some version of that later on. That is a really good album. Yeah, if you ever get a chance to listen to it and you haven't, give it a listen. Although I didn't listen to it till years later. At the time, it wasn't really my cup of tea. I mean, I could tell the music was really good, and there were certain singles I really liked, but I hadn't really gone out and bought any albums until later. It's a good album. Okay, so let's dig a little bit deeper. So, yeah, I've been listening through to some of this. I'm trying to think of any of these that are... So this would be best ever albums. So, yeah, I have listened to some of this subsequently. This is about the only prep I do for these episodes, is listen through to some of the albums off of the best ever albums, sort of best of. And I had to listen to this. Mezzanine, I actually own this album already, although I didn't buy it till a little bit later. And this album didn't buy it till a little bit later. I was listening to this album this week as well. Obviously bought this when it came out, because this is the episode. Yeah. Bought that a little while after I had listened to this. I think I own this. But Queens of the Stone Age. Okay, I did buy that when it came out. No, actually a friend bought it for me as a birthday present. So in terms of how they rank the albums, well, that's interesting. So yeah, Ray of Light, Like a Prayer, first album. Okay, that's interesting. Okay. I'd rank Like a Virgin a lot higher myself. So here we go. Let's go back to the start here. Just look through and I'll pick out all the stuff I bought over the years and I'll just explain what stuff I bought when it came out. So the good thing about 98 was that I had a bit more disposable income. Although I was still doing Open University, I had quite a large wage increase going from working on EPOS support to working as a programmer. So yeah, the only thing also was I had discovered Terrorizer at that point, the music magazine, and I was in filling as well. So it'll be interesting to see here in terms of the more extreme music, what stuff I ended up buying a little bit later with a bit of a time lag. So, but in terms of the sort of non-metal stuff, then yeah, I did buy Moon Safari, but yeah, not until well into the 2000s. I don't think as late as 2008, but not far off there. Yeah. Okay, so let's scroll through. I was aware of Coil, but didn't buy anything by them. Yeah, I was not really into Yngwie at that. Sort of gone off it a bit. Don't even know what album. 10th by then. Yeah, no, I was more. My period of interest was more around the time of just after Trilogy, I think. I did used to own the two live DVDs. Actually, they would have been VHS cassettes. So nothing so far that I can see here that I bought. Oh, For Me Is Fatal to the Flesh. I think I bought that the following year. That was definitely on the Terrorizer list, which we will come to. There's Ray of Light. So yeah, I bought that when it came out. I remember Space, but I wasn't really buying much. I'm trying to think where they would be placed genre-wise. Not sure. Alternative pop. So not really considered to be Britpop as such, I suppose. Snake by Love by Motorhead. I have not kept up with Motorhead releases, not since. Oh dear. Oh, I had going back a long way. Another Perfect Day, is that the name of the album? I think so. The one with Brian Robertson on. So it shows you how out of touch I got with Motorhead stuff. I think the last thing I bought by them was probably that weird compilation album just after that had 4 tracks on it. So around the time when they expanded to a 4-piece, they had 2 guitarists, and there was a compilation album that came out, and they did 4 new tracks with a new line-up. And yeah, that shows you how up to date I kept with Motorhead. I mean, I still listen to a lot of their old stuff, like Overkill, Ace of Spades era. No, not really up to date with Van Halen. Didn't buy this album. No, I wasn't really a big fan of the Blaze Bayley era Iron Maiden period. I don't remember buying that Pulp album when it came out. I listened to it years later though, and there were a few singles off of that. So nothing so far that... Yeah, I didn't buy any Lacuna Coil until well into the 2000s. Went on a bit of a jag where I was sort of infilling. I'm trying to remember, this was probably pre me buying stuff off... Yeah, it would have been pre me buying stuff off Amazon. I don't own that. Did buy that, but not until later. I did have some Massive Attack stuff. I had Blue Lines, which I bought quite a bit previous to this, but only really got back into them. I think I bought, what was it? There's a book I think I've shown on a video called some book on ambient music. I think as a result of that, I started listening to them again, maybe. Wow. Second album, I skipped over that, didn't I? Yeah. So I bought Burning Bridges when it came out, and I bought Black Earth probably sometime in 97, 98. Oh, definitely bought that when it came out. You can see it's clicked out. I was checking, I think. It's probably, yeah. Oh, it's coming out now. I think I might have had a quick look through here at some point. In fact, no, we didn't we look at Catatonia on a previous episode, maybe? I think that was why. So I bought that when it came out. Did I buy that when it came out? Probably pretty close to around this. So this is the first album by the band. Caught in the Beast. Yeah, I bought that when it came out because I picked up their album from '96. Was it Dusk and Her Embrace? Yeah, Dusk and Her Embrace. Oh, debut Muse album. Yeah, we looked at Muse, hadn't we, in a previous episode? Oh, because we did 2001, that's why, yeah. So we might find a lot of bands here that maybe we're just starting up where I had spoken about them in 2001 episode last week. Bloodheim. So, what album did I buy by them? Eld. So, the only thing I have, the interesting thing about this is, do I have this album? Maybe I do. With Enslaved, it wouldn't have been later until I bought their stuff, so probably in the 2000s, because the first album I bought by them, was it Frost or Eld? No, it was Eld, but it was later because someone in the 2000s had given me an Amazon voucher and I didn't have Amazon, so that's what ended up signing me. That's why I ended up signing up to Amazon, so I could spend my Amazon voucher. And the two things I bought was this album and Dillinger Escape Plan EP, something with Running Board in the title, something like that. Anyway, yeah, maybe, yeah, Dillinger Escape Plan. But it was definitely well into the 2000s, I think. Maybe the early 2000s, possibly, but I'm not sure. And then once I got on Amazon, that coincided with, I think, and I've said this on numerous occasions, actually, yeah, people offloading their CD collections and me just binging on CDs because they were just ridiculously cheap. All these CDs where obviously people had like bought the CD, ripped them, and then was reselling them don't think I own that. Oh yeah, I bought that when it came out. I was still on a bit of a Slayer jag. In fact, I had a fan site at the time, which I did with a friend as a good way of learning HTML actually. So sometime in the it would have been the late 90s, we put together a site which had Slayer, Megadeth and Judas Priest, and in the end it was just Judas Priest. But yeah, I was definitely still buying Slayer stuff. So I bought that when it came out. Power Trip, I do own that, but I think I bought that the following year. Same with Anathema. I remember reading this got... Whoops. Sorry about that. Just whacked my hand on the mic stand again. Yet again. This album... I didn't buy anything by Anathema until Judgment. But I remember reading about this album in Terrorizer. I actually saw the horse. Funny enough, this is completely unrelated. I was looking up a gig I went to in the 2000s, and in 2008 I went to see The Haunted in Brighton at the Concord 2. So that was way after this period. Yeah. I'm trying to remember who else played at that gig. Not sure. I think Anterior may have played. No, I don't own that. Yeah, I own an earlier Bauhaus best of actually. I don't recognise anything here I own from these bands. I mean, some of this stuff I think I've listened to on Spotify, but Chemical Wedding, yeah, I bought that several years later actually. It's a good album. It's pretty, I think it's fairly heavily, I don't know how far it's down tuned. It was an interesting one because this was the one that had Adrian Smith on it, and Roy Z, who was the producer, played the guitars. Now Roy Z, what else did he play on? So he was going to produce Resurrection. But, oh, he did. Yeah, so that, when did that come out? 2000, yeah. Yeah, okay. So I wonder, yeah, I'm just trying to wonder, like, I wonder if that's what increased my desire to buy this, as I suddenly realised that he was involved, and Adrian Smith. Because I'm just trying to think if I would have even heard any of these tracks. Yeah, I think I must just have bought this. Did this make a... Well, we'll see if it was on actually a Terrorizer list as well. That may have been an incentive. Eagle Eye Cherry. I have the CD single for this. That's about it. And he's related to Nina Cherry, who I was a big fan of for a period of time. Yes, so half brother. That's it. Yes, yes. I knew there was a connection somewhere. I think I own the previous album to this, but not this one. No, actually, not even Stomp 442. The one before that, Sound of White Noise. So yeah, I wasn't really keeping up on Anthrax. I do have a copy of Obsolete. Not sure if I bought that when it came out. It's quite possible because I'd been introduced, I think I mentioned this story, I'd been introduced to Fear Factory through my supervisor on the helpline actually at Radio Rentals, when he made a copy of the previous album. So I might have snapped that up quite quickly. I do have that. I think, was that a compilation? Oh no, I always get confused. Yeah, they had this thing of using 3 titles. So I own Spiritual Black Dimensions, and what's the other one I've got? I think I've got a couple of the early ones like Stormblast and For All Tid. I think I have. But yeah, I always used to get these two muddled up. It's Spiritual Black Dimensions that I have. The 1999 one. Frontline Assembly. I had recently gotten into them. No, Opus not until Still Life, 99, 2000. So yeah, behind the curve on that. Didn't really get into any of these bands. Again, this must be a year where I was doing quite a bit of infilling of stuff. I probably at that point just started buying CDs, but hadn't gone to Amazon yet, and as a consequence was probably paying full price for CDs. So yeah. Do I have that? I don't think so. Not sure. No, didn't get into them until a bit. I think I have one Sunnydale Real Estate album, and not sure which one it is actually. Don't have this album, Mechanical Animals. Don't even know which album I have. Oh, Antichrist Superstar. DJ Spooky. No. Wow. I do have that, and may have bought it the following year because I think I just bought Glory to the Brave because I think that made like an end of year Terrorizer list in '97. So I was definitely into Hammerfall, but I don't think I was keeping up. Because a lot of times, sometimes I would wait until the end of year list came out and just see what was on that Terrorizer end of year list. So I have that. That's a really cool album, Gran Turismo. But I was a little bit late to the party with that and probably didn't buy it until the following year. Because I remember buying that when I was working for myself, so that must have been either the very end of '98 or '99, I reckon. 1999. I'd mentioned Rhapsody before, I think, but didn't get into them until Dawn of Victory. Someone bought me that as a present. Well, I asked for it. I said, yeah, I would like the new Queens of the Stone Age album. Because it's funny, I'd become aware, again, after the fact of Caius. And that was as a result of listening to, I think, Fu Manchu or somebody like that. So it's this weird path to Queens of the Stone Age. Yeah. Don't have that. I did listen to this actually, I think. Yeah. Or did I listen to another one? No, it's got Right Here, Right Now on it. Oh yeah, because that's got the different North American cover. That's the one that I think's on Spotify. Yeah, I listened to this on Spotify, although Right Here, Right Now was just all over the charts. It took me quite a few years to actually buy this. It's a really good album, but yeah, quite a while. That was a B-sides compilation. That was really popular, I think. Wasn't it because of all the B-sides? I was recently going through a lot of, compilation albums on best ever albums to see like what are the best compilation albums, and an awful lot of the ones that bubble to the top are super popular because they're compilations of like B-sides and stuff like that. So there's a lot of Smith compilations like that, which aren't always necessarily compilations of the single, the A-side, they're B-side compilations. And obviously they sell really well to, existing fans who've already got all the albums anyway. That's a really, really good album. I really recommend that. But I didn't buy that till about 99. I think I own Chaosphere, but I didn't buy that till a lot later. I haven't really listened to a lot of Meshuggah, I must admit. This one I have, and actually I remember I bought this on a trip to Ireland. So yeah, when was this? This was November. I'm trying to remember whether I took the opportunity after I'd left. So this would have been around the time that I went into business. I went self-employed. And I wonder if I used the opportunity to go on a trip out to visit my middle brother and his family in Ireland. Because I do remember going into a record store in I'm trying to remember specifically where it would have been, somewhere around County Kildare, but not it wasn't Kildare, it was one of the other towns. And there was I remember there being this huge mall. Maybe it was the mall in Kildare, thinking about it. Could be. I have a feeling it was somewhere else though. And yeah, buying this out. Certain things really stick in my mind like that. I think it was the it had this weird travelator. So it had travelator is obviously like an escalator but on the flat, but this one was an inclined travelator. So it wasn't it just went up at a slant and didn't have the usual, like steps like on an escalator. So it was somewhere between the two. And it felt a bit weird, like almost unstable going up like that. But that, yeah, I reckon that was probably not, might have been around that time. Although that seems a little bit late in the year. I don't think I've ever been over that late, so I reckon maybe it was the following year, thinking about it. Wow. So again, a bit like what the previous episode, I think, not a lot of stuff seemingly that I bought when it came out. Oh, I skipped over that. This is really good. This again, I bought. The DVD for that is particularly good, actually. I bought this a lot later. I wanted to look at the Terrorizer list for that year because this will give me a better idea. So stuff I bought off of this list. Anything additionally? Oh, this. Diamanda Gallis, Malediction and Prayer. If you have never checked out Diamanda Gallis, you need to check her out. Just for the experience. Let's put it that way. I'm not going to say you'll like it, but yeah. Was that the live one? So I have two of her albums, I think. With Malediction and Prayer and Plague Mass. Maybe Plague Mass is the live one. Not sure. Not sure if I'll deviate. I think most of the ones on this list I've already mentioned. In terms of buying stuff when it came out, definitely Catatonia. Oh, and that, My Dying Bride, 34.788% complete. Because I was already infilling a bit then, so. I have this, but some of these I didn't buy till the actual list came out. So what would obviously happen by time 98, so 97 through into 98, I was actually buying Terrorizer every month. So what would happen is I'd look at the album of the week and maybe try and decide if I wanted to buy it. But a lot of the time, if I was unsure, I'd just wait until the end of the year, see what came up on the albums of the year list, and if it came up there as well, I'd then buy it. So that's why quite a few of these, like Alternative 4, Power Trip, Formulas Fatal to the Flesh, I may have waited until like 99. But I do know that, like I said, I'm pretty sure bought this when it came out. This, because I was already listening to quite a bit of Cradle of Filth and already infilling like earlier stuff prior to Dusk and Her Embrace. This and the Catatonia one as well, at least. I'm just looking to see if there's anything else that I may want to mention. Cryptopsy I did see live eventually, but I didn't really get into them at this point. Everything like that I've mainly listened to retrospectively on Spotify. Same with the band Sentence. Didn't listen to any of their stuff until years later. It was quite sad that I hadn't checked them out a lot earlier. There's a lot of like melodic death metal bands or around this period, getting into around the whole era, which I wish I'd checked out at the time, either who were directly part of the scene or were like associated in some way, were like a sub-genre or a spin-off genre as well. I'm a bit sad that I didn't really check out a lot sooner, or at all in some cases. I haven't still got round to checking out. I saw Orange Goblin in 2007, 2008. They were really good live, actually. And they're a sort of sludge stoner band. Oh, there's Oomph, one of the new Deutsche Hart band that I mentioned, I think, in 2001. Botch, not really until... Is it going to list their albums? Yeah, We Are the Romans, so that will be 99, so the following year, possibly 2000. I was becoming a lot more interested in the 2000s in, what would you call this? It would be post-hardcore, maybe metal. So that interesting metalcore thing, metalcore, post-hardcore. Trying to think, because you were getting this cross-pollination between metalcore, melodic death metal, crossover hardcore, mathcore, all the cores, and then later I suppose deathcore, which was a little bit later from what I remember. Yeah, all the cores all the time. So that something I probably mentioned on previous episodes, I went through a period in the 2000s when I was blogging on Mog, which was a music blogging platform, and I played this little game where I'd take a music genre, stick a core on the end, and then Google to see if it had been created, and 9 times out of 10 it was always there. It was a thing, like Nintendo core I discovered that way. It's taking words, and then other things like Circus Metal, or there was another one like that, a whole load of electronic stuff like Glitch. I think it was Glitchcore where I tried that and then found out all these Glitchcore bands. Oh, was it Prefuse 93, I think? Maybe. So yeah, just start sticking core on genres and invariably you'll find some music like cottagecore and probably witchcore and all these other things. I know there's Witch House, isn't there, I think? Sabotage. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, saw them live in supporting Halford in 2000. Yeah, still listening to quite a bit of Morbid Angel, Domination, Covenant, Abominans, yeah, Blessed are the Sick. So yeah, still listening to them. But it may have been a bit of a time lag on Formulas Fatal to the Flesh. Although I did find that album a little bit impenetrable at the time. I'll have to re-listen to that as well. Anybody else that sticks out? Treo, you didn't really listen to them until a lot later. You probably as well here, if you're familiar with metal extreme music, you might have spotted a lot of bands who, like fairly early on in their career, that were part of then metalcore, or got because like I can remember coming across the term metalcore around the time of like Earth Crisis, like reading about Earth Crisis in 97, and then buying their album. So they had a 96 album that I didn't buy until 97, and then realizing that there was this genre called metalcore, which had, let me see if I can go through this, had come out of I suppose crossover. Let's just do, so Integrity, Earth Crisis, Converge, extreme metal and hardcore punk. So got precursors. So I suspect to see things like, DRI, Corrosion of Conformity, Suicidal Tendencies, Cro-Mags. So all these like hardcore crossover punk, crossover thrash bands. And then you get this sort of slightly harder edge, I suppose, to me. But Earth Crisis definitely sounded heavier, much more, chuggier, and I found them very, very reminiscent of super chuggy Slayer, actually, but with just slightly different vocals. Still got the sort of extreme vocals, but slightly different angle to them. Oh, there's Botch mentioned. But I suppose what then happened is, so to me, this period of metalcore definitely sounded a lot like more in your face and chuggy. And then, and I'm not sure when it happened, but here we go. So definitely I saw this melodic death metal influence coming, and so there's a change in the sound. You got Kill Switch Engage, The Curse, which I have, Shadow Fall. Yeah. And then, did they mention them? Where did Hatebreed fit into all of this as well? Of course, we got Shadows Fall. Oh, there we go, yeah. So it just seemed to be constantly evolving, which is why I found it so interesting. So I'd like periodically check into metalcore and see where it had moved. And then you had all this influence, I think, with almost like techno as well. Yeah, electroniccore, like deathcore. So Suicide Silence. Architects, I've seen live. I should check back in again and see what's been absorbed in now, because I don't really recognise any of these. Anyway, I've gone off at a bit of a tangent there, but so again, like 98, another. I don't know if it specifically name checks anything here from that. So Okay, so debut album 97 from Hatebreed. Yeah, Shadows Fall 97. Okay. So yeah, definitely going in that, yeah, by then sort of going in that melodic deathcore metal direction. When did Avenged Sevenfold start? 99. Yeah, okay. An industrial rock band, Orgy. And then finally, we'll have a quick look at the films. Armageddon, yeah, because the that was the big single by Aerosmith, was from that soundtrack. Saving Private Ryan, Godzilla, Something About Mary, Bugs Life, Deep Impact, Mulan. So I would say 1, 2, 3. No, not that one. Probably these, the ones I'm sort of pointing out here. So Armageddon, Godzilla, There's Something About Mary, Bugs Life, Deep Impact, Lethal Weapon 4. Didn't see at the time they came out, but did end up watching, later on TV or on video. Of course, Blade became the top grossing film. Let's just quickly look at the awards for that year. Okay, so of course these are a little bit delayed. And a quick scan through. Oh no, I'm getting that muddled up. Something else, Spice World. I don't think at this point, actually thinking about it, I wonder if this is the year. When did, I'd be curious to know when the X-Files film came out. I wonder if that was this year, because I remember taking a day off from working in when I worked in Eastbourne, and going down and watching it. But it may have been later in the year. Yeah, it also reminds me of a period because so I've probably spoken a little bit about, let me scroll through while I'm chatting about this, about, those 18 months I spent doing value-added reselling. The jobs we took on were just unbelievable. And that was because we got ourselves in this position, and not something I wanted to do, but someone that we eventually took on at the firm, and it was something to do with marketing. When we were taking on these jobs where other people had failed spectacularly, and it was thought as a way of enhancing our kudos, which it did, but the jobs were just nightmare jobs, where the previous contractor had just completely screwed everything up. And so we were in weird situations with, not just doing mods, but just trying to recover. Trying not to swear, not that it really matters, but just stuff that was completely messed up. That's about the politest word I can use here. And where I'm going with this, so I did spot Lost in Space, but didn't watch that at the time. I was due to have something had happened, and I was owed a day off. And then, because what had happened was I'd sort of leapt in at the last minute to pull the irons out the fire and sort of, rescue a project that was going south through no fault of our own. But the wheels were falling off of it, and I needed to act really fast. And I think what had happened was that had happened, and then I was so I was given a day off for that on top of my other. They said that you need a day off, and then I was due to have the day off, and then I got a phone call, and they said, "Oh, something else has caught fire. Can you dive in and save that?" So I had to dive in and sort that out, and then that was and then there was a day off for my day off, and then for that day off, I thought, oh, I'll go and watch the new X-Files video, but I can't remember if it was this year. I'm sure it will come up. I'll look for it anyway. This is a really cool film, Sliding Doors. Yeah, really interesting premise. So it's effectively two things running in parallel, two storylines, two paths in the central character's life that could have panned out. And I think, well, no, I won't spoil it. I won't say where it goes if you've not seen it. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, actually. Merlin, no. Yeah, so I was going to the cinema now and again, but nothing like I was in the 2000s or the early 2000s. So anything here like Godzilla, I ended up watching after the fact. I never got around to watching that. That's supposed to be really good, isn't it? Based on that, yeah, the novel. Yeah. Oh, this is awesome. So I don't know if anybody's still watching to the end of this video. Yeah, do yourself a favour, check that out. I actually watched this because, now hang on, I've got to get this right. Did I watch this before? Because this has been remade in 2002, and I definitely saw the 2002 one at the cinema, but I've got a feeling, just trying to think, how did I manage to see this before this? So this one's interesting. The remake's interesting because this was a period when Robin Williams was appearing as a baddie, and I went to see that, but I'm sure I saw the original before I saw this, but I'm not sure how. I'm wondering if it was on late at night. Yeah, I'm just trying to think if it even got like general release, and just I did see it at the cinema before, but yeah, I'm not sure now. I'm just sure I did see this before I saw that. I mean, I made a point of seeing it before this because I knew that this was just so much more dark, just so much more darker. Yeah. There's no... Is this the one where... I think in this one, there's like no redeeming... there's nobody you can identify with. In the remake, it does have Hilary Swank in it. But I got a feeling in this one, it's just so dark that the whole point is all the characters are flawed. But I actually have this on DVD. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Oh, that's going to bug me now, but just the sort of thing I can't remember off the top of my head. So I would have seen this in 2002, and I have this on DVD, and I think that's how I watched it. So I don't know what made me so in order for me to watch it before this, I would have had to have tracked down the DVD on before 2002. So I don't know, but check it out. Oh, I'm so glad I went through this. Sometimes I always feel like skipping this because most of the time I go through this and it's like, no, I didn't see that. But yeah. Makes me want to dig it out and watch it now, actually. Oh, there we go. Yeah, cool. So that was it. June, yes. June of... I can even remember where I went to see this. I went down to Brighton. And it was like an empty cinema. It must have been near the end of the run. Yeah, I drove down to Brighton. I don't know why I would have gone all the way down there. Maybe I just wanted to go shopping as well, to chill out. It's quite possible, actually, thinking about it. Yeah. I've just taken advantage of that Disney offer. I sort of, fire up my Disney subscription on and off. Mainly I always do it at Christmas. And I noticed this month, so in September at the moment, September of 2023, if you're watching this in the future. And they had this offer for, 3 months, $1.99 a month. And I thought, it won't be for people that have an existing account that have just suspended it. And sure enough, if you've suspended your account, as long as your account's not live, there's probably a time period. You couldn't just I suppose you might get lucky and wind it up before the offer's over. But you have to sort of, stop your subscription. I've had to stop it. And I think the last time I subscribed was when I wanted to watch Kenobi. So whenever that was, and I didn't binge watch a whole load of other stuff. So I should watch this again. In fact, there's 2 X-Files films out, isn't there? I've seen both, but this one I did actually see at the cinema. In a near empty cinema. It was lovely. It was a really hot day, but it was in this sort of air conditioned cinema. Armageddon, didn't watch that till a lot later. Lethal Weapon 4, that probably ended up on TV, I suspect. Watched that a lot later. There's Something About Mary. Excellent comedy. And a lot of excellent stuff out this year. Nothing here. No, I've never watched that actually. I can't remember. No, I don't think so. I didn't really keep up with the Halloween franchise. So the only franchise I've ever really kept up with, thinking about it, is Alien. So Alien and some of the spin-offs. So Alien Predator, and the Prometheus stuff. Yeah, that's it really. And Star Wars, of course. Oh, Blade. Yeah, didn't watch that till years later. God, yeah, this is... It's funny, 98 for me, like I say, is such a pivotal year, but I've got such mixed emotions because the work was so unbelievably hard. And I think about it now, I'm thinking, God, I must have been insane because I'm doing my postgrad, I'm working, I've been there, over 6 months now, but I'm working this new job, which I'm also having to study for. And all the jobs we get to do are just really hard jobs, like just really hard jobs. Oh, I did enjoy this. Yeah. So yeah, but lots of cool stuff going on. Oh, and the other thing was just the drive, the sheer amount of driving everywhere and staying in hotels. I remember also watching like really early episodes of South Park in these hotels. So I'd be like in the middle of the night. I remember. Okay, so yeah. So one funny story, and I don't know. This must have been 98. Yeah, I was doing a job down in Brecon Beacons. We had a client in Brecon Beacons, and Brecon is a garrison town. And it's really weird. Like when you go down there, certain times a year, it's just empty. And I've had the weirdest experiences down there. Like the first time I went down there, I remember staying in this hotel in the high street of Brecon and waking up in the night and seeing just all of these lights on the ceiling, like red and white, blue lights, and not knowing what it was. And then, it takes you a while to orientate yourself, and then you realise what's happening is, so next door to this pub, there's a nightclub, but it's clearly has really good soundproofing, because I never used to hear anything. But there'd been a fight after the nightclub had closed, and the police had been called. And I didn't hear because the sirens were off. Maybe it must have been the sirens maybe woke me up, or maybe they did a silent, didn't put the sirens on. But they were outside, and there was like police cars and I think ambulances, and you could just see this sort of like, casting light on the ceiling. And it was just weird. I was just having like that, one of those really weird lucid dreams. With these dancing blue and red lights in it, and then I look up at the ceiling, it's like, oh my god, what is that? And then after I came, properly woke up and looking out the window, and I can see all these like the police and these groups of people, like they're trying to de-escalate everything. But the weird one was probably a few months later. I went down there really off season and checked into the hotel, into my room, and something weird happened. I can't remember the circumstances that led to it, but they'd swapped over the staff, and it was odd because someone came up and knocked on the room and said, "Oh, we're just checking because something made them think there was nobody in the hotel." And it turned out I was the only person that night in the hotel. And I mean, I don't think I would have got like locked in and they would have come back the following. I mean, I'd probably been all right. They would come back the following day because I think there was a restaurant there. But it was just surreal. They came down and knocked on the door. I said, "Oh yeah, I just noticed. We're just checking. Oh, yeah, you're the only person here tonight." Okay. I think they were joking. They said, "Oh yeah, we were thinking of going home." So okay, cheers. Oh. Yeah, it was but I was being a bit disappointed because I should have thought of it at the time. I was just staying there for one night, I think. I'd gone down to sort something out or meet somebody at the place we were working at, like on my own. And I think maybe I was down there to have a chat with a client about something. And I remember, I think that time the room wasn't particularly great, so I should have asked to be thinking, well, if there's nobody else here, can I have another room? I mean, there's nothing fundamentally wrong with the room as such. I think just the bed was a little bit squishy, and I tend to like a hard bed. And then another time, I remember staying in the same place and looking at, I thought, something weird about the bathroom door. And then noticing the bathroom door had a spy hole on it, and realised the bathroom door at some point in the past must have got damaged, and they needed to quickly replace it. So they replaced it with like a door, a proper door, and just left the spy hole on the door in the bathroom door. I suppose unless you wanted to check if someone knocked on your bathroom door, but then they'd have to get in the room to do that. So it was a little bit surreal. Oh dear, those were the days. Star Trek Insurrection. May have seen that actually at the cinema. Oh yeah, I saw that after the fact. Joe Young. Oh yeah, wow, quite a bit of good stuff that year. So yeah, particularly pleased about Finding Insomnia. I'd completely forgotten about that, and then also the fact I was reminded about the X-Files films. So wow, okay. I think I'll stop there. I've rambled enough. So thanks once again for listening and watching this very rambly episode of The Joys of the Rediscovered album, where the joy is, well, for me, just rambling about stuff around that time and sort of things that were going on. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what we've got next week in terms of the year. So bye for now. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in a future episode.